going to begin the consideration to cure and correct, and I'm going to begin the consideration to cure and correct with a motion, and that's the next agenda item. And that motion would be, I move. I certainly can. Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to begin the consideration to cure and correct, which is our next item, with a motion. And I move that we place these 5 contracts on the January 28th, 2013 agenda for the purpose of curing and correcting any Brown Act violations.
Second for discussion.
Okay. And I'm going to let the clerk get that. I move that we place these 5 contracts on the January 28th, 2013 agenda for the purpose of curing and correcting any Brown Act violations. And what I am going to do at this time is, obviously, this is a topic I'm very committed to, and very passionate about. And so I've actually written some thoughts down that I am going to share with you, and ask that the board really consider these seriously. I find this, in speaking to this motion, that this is a defining moment for our new board. The election in November demonstrated that the public wants the board to operate differently, with more transparency and accountability. So tonight we have the opportunity to act transparently and build some public trust. Cure and correct, and I'm going to say this slowly and carefully, and cure and correct is not about guilt or punishment, as Ms. Brown said. It is not about guilt or punishment. Cure and correct does not put the district at risk. As a matter of fact, if the board does not take this action to correct, we put the district at risk of possible lawsuits. It does not put the district at risk to cure and correct. It is not about guilt and punishment. So how do we cure and correct? That's what we're being asked to consider. And again, it's all very simple, and it's the right thing to do. Just put the 5 contracts on our next agenda. It's that simple. Put the contracts on the next agenda. Putting the written contracts on the next agenda also allows all board members to be part of the process and gives the public the opportunity for discussion. It also gives us the opportunity to clean up these contracts. These contracts are what you consider replacement contracts. They're not amended contracts, they're replacement contracts. And in the process of actually taking a contract and putting an entirely different, a new contract in to replace, and part of the contractual agreement says this will replace all previous agreements. In the process, there are some careless and embarrassing errors in these contracts and ambiguities that have to be addressed. And that's another concern that I have, and another reason to cure and correct. For example, the superintendent could conceivably owe the district $25,000 because his replacement contract will have eliminated his one-time housing allowance, which was $25,000. And that contract says this contract now replaces that, and that clause has been removed. So he is now agreeing not to take a $25,000 housing allowance. There are violations of Ed Code 35031. And if you know Ed Code 35031, Ed Code 35031 stipulates that terms of a contract can only be for 4 years. By replacing the original contracts with another contract, there's now at least three contracts that violate Ed Code because the term of employment offered is more than 4 years, which the Ed Code does not allow for. And then there's another law that came into place in January 2012. It's been in place for a year now, and that's Assembly Bill 1344. And Assembly Bill 1344 was really created to create more transparency and accountability measures for public executive contracts, which is the very issue we're dealing with. And the requirements of AB 1344, which have been in law now for a year, have not been addressed in these contracts. And there are various areas that 1344 mandates be covered in these contracts. So the question really is before the board tonight, why wouldn't we decide to cure and correct this? It's easy, it's simple, it's the right thing to do. Placing the contracts on the agenda addresses the community concerns and eliminates any further risk to the district. It tells the public that we're going to be open and transparent and we're going to do things better. That's how we build public trust. In a similar situation in her city, in looking at what the Gilroy City Attorney has done, she explained how simple and important curing and correcting was, and she explained it to her city council. Her written recommendation to the city council stated, and I'll just take some excerpts from her very wise words when they were confronted with a cure or correct demand. She told them, "We think it is in the best interest of the city council to take this opportunity to effect a cure, or should a court view the situation differently from our analysis. This is an opportunity for the city council to cure or correct any actions it took. The Brown Act specifically grants this opportunity to cure or correct to a legislative body alleged to have violated certain sections of the Act without risk to the city. Since taking such corrective action cannot be construed or used as evidence that violations did actually occur, we recommend that the City Council consider the matter and take action to correct." And it was a 3-page brief that she wrote to the City Council, who had a cure or correct demand presented to them. And her words of wisdom were exactly what I'm paralleling here tonight. This is not about guilt or innocence. The school board is not a court of law. We do not have to determine that any violations occur. We simply have to take action to correct it and thus eliminate all risk. We address the community's concerns, and we eliminate all risk to the district of future lawsuits from the community. So the question again to this board is, why would we not want to take advantage of an opportunity to cure and correct? There's no downside to it. By voting to place these contracts on our next agenda, we can make the choice to cure and correct tonight, eliminate any risk to the district, and have a chance to change a culture and the way we do business. Tonight we have the opportunity to regain some public trust and define ourselves as a new board that truly values transparency, demands accountability, and responds to and respects the public who elected us. So for that reason, those reasons, I'm making this motion that we simply take the wise path and choose to correct the action. It is not an admission of guilt, it is not a risk to the district, and it's all about transparency and accountability. So therefore, I'd ask this board to please seriously consider that, how simple and easy we can make this for all of us, and we can move on to get to some of the real business of our school district. And at this point, we can have other commentary from board members.
I am fascinated with your ability to spin words. We sought out legal counsel to find out whether or not we had any Brown Act violations, and we were told that we didn't. Everything that we had done was done properly. The actual contract was, it doesn't become a contract, a legal binding contract when we sign it. It only becomes when the vote is taken in a properly agendized meeting, which we did. And so what we have are valid contracts. We do have some they're not perfect. I mean, you know, there's like a mistake or two, but they're not, no, don't laugh. I'm serious. We're talking something very minor, and we're turning something that's little into something that's like, anyway, I believe that when I voted for those contracts in April, that we were voting to extend them for a year. And that was a legal contract. And what we're doing now is trying to find a way to go around those contracts that we we extended for a year. And we're using words and interesting ways of other people's experiences in California to justify it. And I have to tell you that I don't think that's very transparent. As I try to understand what transparent means, I feel like we aren't being transparent now. I feel like we're taking the word, applying it to a situation where we have been told that everything that we did was legal, nothing that we did was illegal,